Yeah, so this is East Campus. It's the smaller of the two campuses.
John Benson's office has a bookcase, a desk, computer,
Fairly sparsely furnished.
but his lab is the great outdoors.
The woods of Canada or the plains of Nebraska or the ocean of California, wherever we happen to be working.
I'm Mary Jane Bruce, and this is Faculty 101.
Okay, you should switch partners now.
To be able to inspire young people.
Ace your finals.
It's really rewarding.
I love the students.
Welcome to Faculty 101, life hacks and success stories from Nebraska faculty. First up, orientation. Who is John Benson and what does he do?
I'm John Benson, John-B-E-N.
Dr. Benson is an assistant professor in the School of Natural Resources at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. His research takes him outside to study animals. Are you in the water there?
I'm not in the water. I'm on the boat.
Dr. Benson pulls up a video file on his computer from a research project studying the population of great white sharks off the coast of California.
This is all taken from a GoPro. We've got GoPros on a stick that we can put underwater as the shark comes by the boat.
Researchers hope to learn more about what's happening with the shark population. Is it increasing or dropping, and why? Sharks are elusive, hard to study, but amazing to see.
I think it was my second day on the job, staring out across the ocean and 20 yards in front of the boat, a white shark just fully breached out of the water, full separation from the water with a gleaming white belly.
As a PhD student, Dr. Benson tracked wolves in Ontario, Canada, and studied how hybridization affects survival and reproduction.
And so then I actually crawl inside the den.
Wearing a headlamp, Dr. Benson crawled underground through tunnels so small they barely accommodate a human being.
And you can just wriggle through.
At the bottom, a litter of pups.
They're a little bit bitey and growly, but we handle them with gloves. And once you get them out of the den, they get quite calm.
So you pull them out?
We pull them out and
take a DNA sample, insert an electronic tag,
and then just release them back into the den.
In Louisiana, Dr. Benson helped introduce black bears to hardwood forests and swamps, a project that involved peering into a hollow cypress tree to track a mama bear and her cub.
The bear might be literally right there in your face, or it might be 60 feet, 70 feet down, all the way at the bottom. So you never quite knew what you were going to get into.
It's been a career filled with adventure. But nothing compares with a project that involved catching moose calves and dealing with a very angry mother.
Bears, mountain lions, sharks, none of them are quite as terrifying as a female moose. They're prey species, so presumably their evolutionary response is to defend those calves against predators or any threats. And so we did most of them with a helicopter if it's out in an open area like a marsh. And so the helicopter pilot could make sure that he kept the cow away from me while I was working up the calves. But if they're in the tall timber and the thick woods, then we can't bring the helicopter in. And so a few of us would just hike in and try to scare her away from her calves with varying degrees of success. We always succeeded in getting the calves, but we certainly succeeded in giving ourselves a really good scare a few times too.
Next, lab work. We go deeper into Dr. Benson's research at the University of Nebraska. Dr. Benson's current research focuses on mule deer in Nebraska. Some populations of mule deer are doing well. Others are struggling.
The question that we have and that Game and Parks have, who we work with on this project, is why do we see these different dynamics? What's causing it? What's limiting these populations? And that'll help us understand maybe what management can be done to have healthy populations of mule deer and populations that people could hunt sustainably and not have any worries about negatively affecting the population.
Dr. Benson also collaborates with the National Park Service on a long-term study of mountain lions in the greater Los Angeles area.
They're certainly not encroaching on the area as much as we've encroached on their area. So mountain lions are native to the Los Angeles area, but now we've got the second largest city in the United States there. But amazingly, mountain lions have hung on in a few places in the greater LA area. We even have a mountain lion that is being tracked within the city limits of Los Angeles, but we're mostly studying a population that's been isolated in the Santa Monica Mountains, just northwest of Los Angeles. and looking at genetics and survival and reproduction, how those interact and what it means for the long-term persistence of that population. Most of the projects I work on are either with hunted species like mule deer here in Nebraska, or species that are threatened or endangered due to things other than hunting, but they're declining. And so in both cases, we want to figure out what are their population dynamics, and so what are the limiting factors for this population, and what management actions could we take to reverse those things.
Now it's time for a pop quiz. Random questions, life hacks, and wisdom for all of us. What was your path to this career?
From a young age, I was fascinated by wildlife and animals in general. And so I spent a lot of time growing up out in the woods looking at sign from wildlife, catching frogs, that kind of thing. Fast forward to my 20s, and I was looking for something fun and adventurous to do where I could also hopefully make a difference for conservation. And I started looking into college programs, and what do you know, you can actually go and major in it. And right away I knew I'd found the right career for me.
Why is wildlife research important?
Two main reasons. One, I just think it's important for us to understand the natural world and to understand the world around us. But more practically, human activities and human actions can sometimes negatively affect wildlife populations, and we see that in a lot of ways. Sometimes it's through direct interactions like hunting, other times it's less direct interactions, things like habitat fragmentation or habitat destruction for development. And so really wildlife management came about because we realized if we wanted to keep hunting populations, we were going to need to do it scientifically.
What is a research question you hope to answer someday?
Broadly, I'm really interested and fascinated by large carnivores and large predators persisting in human-dominated landscapes. And so our work with mountain lions in Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles area has been really focused on looking at what are the threats to these populations and how do those affect viability, and how can we make changes to the way we manage the landscape to try to counterbalance those. Most of what we know about, say, predator-prey interactions or just the overall role of a carnivore within the ecological community comes from very remote places. So my question, and the question on a lot of people's mind, is do what we know about predator-prey interactions and the role of large carnivores in those ecosystems, does that hold in areas that are heavily impacted by humans? And the answer is we just don't know at this point.
Switching gears a little bit, what would be your favorite life hack or advice for students?
Yeah, I guess real simply, just find something to do that you enjoy, that you think is worth doing, and then just be all in, and try to do it to the fullest, and to try to not let doubt or fear or the fact that it might sound crazy what you're proposing to do or what somebody's asking you to do get in the way of trying to do it. Certainly, I think the most rewarding and exciting things I've been able to achieve were all things that sounded a little ridiculous and crazy when first proposed, and I think you get through a few of those experiences and you realize that really anything's possible if you put your mind to it.
What makes you hopeful about the future?
Well, something I've talked to my students about in class, when we're talking about conservation biology, it's really easy to get pessimistic, feel negatively. Certainly no other species that we're aware of has ever impacted the world around them and other species around them as negatively as humans have. On the other hand, what I try to tell the students is no other species has ever had the ability, and more importantly the motivation, to actually try to reverse those changes, and actually putting as much effort as we do into conserving other species, trying to increase populations that are threatened. We have government agencies, nonprofit organizations, academic research geared towards conservation. So I think that's the one thing you can look at and be optimistic about, is we have the potential to change what we're doing and try to figure out new ways to do things.
And finally, graduation day. Dr. Benson leaves us with a final thought. Wildlife conservation faces daunting challenges, but John Benson is excited by the potential to make positive change. He's never forgotten a moment in Louisiana where he was following up on efforts to reintroduce bears to the area.
Well, the last winter of the project, I was visiting a den for one of the females I'd reintroduced, and so far no males, no reproduction had occurred. And I was sneaking into the den and I heard a cub crying from the den, so we knew she had bred in the reintroduction site and the project was starting to be a success. So that was very memorable.
That's it for Faculty 101. Thanks to John Benson for sharing his experiences with us. In the show notes, we link to a video where you can see sharks and wolves and Dr. Benson. Next time on the podcast,
The robot has a couple of arms and tools.
how a small-town kid went from tinkering in his family hardware store to building surgical robots. Faculty 101 is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.